Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Major General Mark Kelly, the Repatriation Commissioner at the Australian Department of Veterans Affairs, and it is my great privilege to be your Master of Ceremonies for this morning's Anzac Day dawn service at Gallipoli in Turkey. I will now broadly acknowledge our official guests, the Right Honourable Trevor Mallard, Speaker of the New Zealand House of Representatives, His Excellency Mr Mark Innes-Brown PSM, the Australian Ambassador to the Republic of Turkey, the Honourable Mehmet Ozoy, the Turkish Minister for Culture and Tourism, ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, General Angus Campbell, AODSC, the Australian Chief of Defence Force, Air Vice Marshal Andrew Clark, the New Zealand Chief of Air Force, General Sir Mark Carlton-Smith, KCB, CBE, ADC, the United Kingdom's Chief of the General Staff, veterans, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you as we gather at this special place on the Gallipoli Peninsula to remember all those who served and died here 104 years ago, and to acknowledge those who were once our adversaries are now our firm friends. Our service today begins with the mounting of the catapult party.
Catapult party! Slow! Catapult party, outwards! Turn! Catapult party, rest on!
I now invite Colonel Richard Campbell, CSC, the Australian Defence Attaché to the Republic of Turkey, to deliver the call to remembrance.
The story of the Gallipoli campaign is at once unique and universal. Gallipoli was like no other First World War campaign. The very countryside over which men fought, the narrow beachhead, the sharp rise from the shore to the heights of the first ridge, the maze of cliffs and gullies, distinguished Gallipoli from any other battlefield. So too did the campaign's evolution from a naval assault to an amphibious landing, and finally to a deadly stalemate on land. But in other ways, Gallipoli was no different to other battles and other campaigns. Suffering and death, courage and fear. These are elements common to all wars and all conflicts. Loss became commonplace. Grief engulfed families across the world. But to a parent, a partner or a child, the loss of a loved one is world-shattering. Each death and wound elicits a unique grief. When the Anzacs landed at Gallipoli on 25 April 1915, they confronted an intimidating and unfamiliar landscape. Some troops who had lost their battalion in the confusion of the landings joined others for the climb up the heights. But as the campaign wore on, the old hands came to know the rise and fall of this land. Survival depended upon it. Knowing the area is vulnerable to a sniper's bullet or the fall of a shell could save a soldier's life. But not always. The threat of death was ever present at Gallipoli. Before the campaign began, many among the Allies believed the Ottoman Empire would be easily defeated. The folly of these assumptions quickly became apparent. General Sir Henry de Beauvoir de Lisle wrote that he found the Turkish troops to be equal to the Germans and very brave in small attacks. Those who fought here lived a precarious existence. They endured heat and cold as seasons changed over the course of the campaign. They laboured to construct saps, dugouts, trenches and terraces to hold their positions or to extend them closer to the foe. Water was scarce, and for the Anzacs at least, food was monotonous. Their diet of bully beef, hard tack, biscuits, cheese and jam soon wore thin. The August offensive failed. The weather turned. Storms lashed the peninsula in November. It became clear that supplying the troops over winter would be treacherous and a breakthrough was unlikely. The decision was made to evacuate. The last troops left Anzac on the night of 19 to 20 December 1915. For many, leaving the graves of fallen comrades was heart-wrenching. Waiting to embark on 19 December, Alfred Guppy of the 14th Battalion put his thoughts to paper. Sleep sound, old friends. The keenest part, which more than failure wounds the heart, is thus to leave you, thus to part.
Our first commemorative address this morning will be delivered by the Right Honourable Trevor Mallard, the Speaker of the New Zealand House of Representatives.
E tēnei marae tēnā koe, nā mate haere, haere, haere. Merhaba, Sizlere, Saiguila, Salam, Lu Yurum. And as we greet our mates from across the Tasman, G'day cobbers. Kia ora tātou katoa. At this very time, 104 years ago, the troops of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, forever now known as the Anzacs, came ashore here. The bonds formed amongst men of Anzac were founded on mutual respect and confidence. Together, they demonstrated values of courage, of perseverance, of sacrifice, and of mateship. In a similar manner, with the same values, the Turkish soldiers played an important part in building modern Turkey. Their valour ensured that much that is ancient, that is wonderful in Turkey survived for generations and generations to come. The political changes that flowed are at the core of the modern Turkish state. We memorialise Ataturk on the rugged south coast of Wellington in a place not very different from this. But the experiences shared by the Australians and New Zealanders on that terrible day and in the days that followed have come to symbolise much about the fundamental values our nations stand for. The great upsurge in research and writing on the Gallipoli campaign that was prompted by the centenary of the First World War means that we now know a great deal more about what happened here and why. We know the invasion of Gallipoli was from the outset a terribly poorly planned enterprise with no realistic chance of success. The bravery and sacrifice of those who landed here was to be in vain. But in history, there are always the what-ifs. We now know that at the very beginning of the battle, there were fewer than 300 Turkish defenders with rifles and no machine guns. They held their position against the invading force of 11,000. What if the Anzacs had pushed on instead of consolidating? We do not gather here to mark a victory or defeat, but to pay tribute to the valour, the service and sacrifice of all those who fought here. Anzac Cove continues to have a special place in the hearts of all of us, and it informs our rejection of extremism and of terrorism, whether it occurs in Turkey, in Australia, in New Zealand, or in Sri Lanka. At this service, and at other services around the world today, we reaffirm the special ties between Australia, New Zealand, and Turkey, and the continuing relevance they have as we seek to uphold their values. Ka mara mahara tonu tatou kia rātou. We will remember them.
The Turkish forces who opposed the Anzacs at Gallipoli were led by Mustafa Kemal, who, as Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, was the founder of modern Turkey and became the first president of the Republic of Turkey. I now invite Colonel Ibrahim Güven Kılavuz of the Turkish Army, who will read in Turkish, then English, the remarkable tribute paid to the Anzacs in 1934 by President Mustafa Kemal Atatürk.
Bu memleketin toprakları üzerinde kanlarını döken kahramanlar. Burada bir dost vatanın toprağındasınız. Huzur ve sükun içinde uyuyunuz. Sizler Mehmetçiklerle yan yana, koyun koyunasınız. Uzak diyarlardan evlatlarını harbe gönderen analar. Gözyaşlarınızı dindiriniz. Evlatlarınız bizim bağrımızdadır. Huzur içindedirler ve huzur içinde rahat rahat uyuyacaklardır. Onlar bu toprakta canlarını verdikten sonra artık bizim evlatlarımız olmuşlardır. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives, you are now lying in the soil of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and the Mehmets to us. Where they lie side by side, here in this country of ours. You, the mothers, who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk.
Please stand and join the band of the Royal Australian Air Force and the New Zealand Defence Force Band in singing the hymn, Be Still My Soul.
This
Please be seated. Our second commemorative address this morning will be delivered by General Angus Campbell, AODSC, the Australian Chief of Defence Force.
In 1915, to serve here was to be engulfed in war. Silence and comfort were rare commodities. Any recruits who may have felt pangs of excitement when they enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force were soon confronted with the realities of war at Gallipoli. Death became relentless here. Few places were safe from Turkish fire, and life was a constant strain. Some of the frontline trenches were separated by mere metres. Those defending the trenches had to be vigilant. An attack could come quickly, by day or night. Writing to his brother, Private Frederick Trotter reflected on the strain the excitement of battle brought. It's the excitement, he says, that tires and sickens, and one soon loses the adventurous spirit of it. One soon begins to see not the glory and the glamour, but the gore and the misery of war. And it goes on day after day, and night after night, and week after week. For Frederick, the only solace to be found in his time serving here was in the mail he received. He wrote, "It is the human touch that brings us out of our fast-growing, cold, sordid selves to living, warm, brave hearts once more. To crawl away into a tunnel or sap, there to drink in every word written to you. To conjure up before your mind's eye the faces of those who have written. To recall little incidents of a past life where all was peace and joy at home. This is the beautiful hour of the soldier's life." Frederick was a salesman in civilian life. He had spent some time in a rifle club before he enlisted. But this world of war must have been beyond anything he could have imagined. And like many others, his war continued beyond Gallipoli to the Western Front, where he earned a military medal. Frederick returned to Australia, but many thousands did not. The story of Gallipoli left an indelible mark in our collective history. It is one of our nation's foundational stories, one that means a great deal to a great many people. We're drawn to it, and not because it is a simple story told many times, but because it, and the stories of all Australians in war, is a complex one. It is in the shades of grey which makes the Anzacs so compelling. A century of remembrance, a century of scholarship has revealed their complexity. They were from the city and the country. They were young and older. They felt fear and anger, sorrow and joy. Some joined for the adventure, while others sought a secure income in the military, among a myriad other reasons for enlisting. Many thousands died and many returned home broken, psychologically, physically, or both. Others came home and thrived. They were individuals who had become a collective group, the Anzacs. But it is in the detail of their individual stories that we can come as close as possible to understanding their experience. I encourage you all to seek out these stories. Whether you have a direct family connection or not, find just one soldier's story and you will gain a glimpse into the rich details of this campaign and the people who fought and lived in its shadow. Here, at what was once known as North Beach, we no longer see the piers, supplies, mules, field hospitals and aid posts which crowded this area in the latter months of the campaign. The sounds, smells and sights of the war have gone, but the stories remain with us. Turkey, New Zealand and Australia are forever connected by our shared history in this place, by a campaign that began for us at dawn on the 25th of April 1915. And at dawn on this day, for more than a century, we have gathered in cities and towns across Australia and New Zealand and across the world to remember them. For what they have done, this we will do, lest we forget.
Lest we forget. I now invite Principal Air Chaplain Mark Willis, the Director General Chaplaincy of the Royal Australian Air Force, to lead us in the Lord's Prayer.
As we come to this time of Christian prayer, I invite you to join with me or to meditate and reflect in your own tradition. Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Wreaths will now be laid by official representatives to acknowledge the bond between Australia and New Zealand and the significance of the Anzac tradition. The first wreaths will be laid together by the Right Honourable Trevor Mallard on behalf of the people of New Zealand, and His Excellency Mr Mark Innes-Brown PSM on behalf of the Government and the people of Australia. The next wreath will be laid by the Honourable Mehmet Arzoy, the Minister for Culture and Tourism, on behalf of the government and the people of the Republic of Turkey. The next wreaths will be laid on behalf of the Republic of Austria, the People's Republic of Bangladesh, Canada, and the French Republic by Brigadier General Reinhard Schobel, Brigadier General Tarakul Alam Tariq, Ms. Stephanie Duem, and Mr. Sylvain Guillaume. The next wreaths will be laid on behalf of the Federal Republic of Germany, the Hellenic Republic of Greece, and Hungary by Dr. Dirk Rotenberg, Colonel Dimitrios Arampatsis, and Lieutenant Colonel Janos Varga. The next wreaths will be laid on behalf of the Republic of India, Ireland, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland by Sanjay Bhattacharya, Ms. Catherine McManus, and Mrs. Jennifer Anderson. The next wreaths will be laid on behalf of the Defence Forces of Australia, New Zealand and the United Kingdom by General Angus Campbell, AODSC, Air Vice Marshal Andrew Clark and General Sir Mark Carlton Smith, KCB, CBE, ADC. The final wreaths will be laid on behalf of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission and all veterans of Australia and New Zealand by Mr Julian Evans, Mr Don Spinks AM and Lieutenant Colonel Emma Thomas. It is now time to reflect and to silently remember all those who have served and died in war. Please stand for the ode, which will be followed by the last post, 1 minute silence and reveille. The ode will be recited in Maori by Warrant Officer Tony Tate of the Royal New Zealand Air Force and in English by Warrant Officer Class 1 Michael Bates, the Regimental Sergeant Major Ceremonial of the Australian Army.
Catapult party, attention!
E kore rātou e kaumā tuatia. Pēnei e a tātou kua mahui nei. E kore hoki rātou e noi kore. A hākua pēhea i ngā āhuatanga o te wā. I te hekinga atu o te rā. Tai noa ki te aranga mai i te ata. Ka maumahara tonu tātou ki a rātou. Ka maumahara tonu tātou ki a rātou.
They went with songs to battle, they were young. Straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catapult party, present! Arms!
Please remain standing for the national anthems of Turkey, New Zealand and Australia.
Catafalque Party, present! Arms!
Korkma sönmez bu şafaklarda yüzen asacak. Sönmeden yurdumun üstüne tüten en son ocak o bendir milletimin. Yıldızıdır parlayacak o benimdir, o benim milletimindir ancak. Çatma kurban olayım, çehrenin ey nazlı hilal. Kahraman ırkıma bir günde bu şiddet bu celal sana olmaz dökülen. Kanlarımız sonra helal hakkıdır, Hakka tapa milletimin istiklal.
Catafalque Party, shoulder, arms.
I now invite Chaplain Peter Olds of the Royal New Zealand Navy, Principal Chaplain Operations of the New Zealand Defence Force, to offer the final blessing.
Will you pray with me? God of all people,
In the stillness of this day, we have paused and we have remembered. We have spoken of honour, of sacrifice, of kinship and of commitment. We have stood to speak, and we have stood in silence before each other and before you. May these acts of remembering, of acknowledging and of honouring, may our very silence shake us and shape us at the very core. May the gift that we have been given in the lives and in the deaths of those we have commemorated today produce in us works of peace, today and each day. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. We began our service this morning with the mounting of the catafalque party, and now the catafalque party will be dismounted.
Catafalque party in words. Turn. Catafalque party. Quick march.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our dawn service here on the Gallipoli Peninsula to commemorate the 104th anniversary of the Anzac landings. Thank you.